Well, welcome to our fifth and final session of Portraits in Courage, our small group study where we've been looking at the life of Moses and his leading of the Israelites out of Egypt, out of their slavery, and up toward the Promised Land. Tonight, what we're looking at is the Israelites are just now getting ready to go over into the Promised Land. Moses has died, Joshua has taken over as the leader, and they have got to cross over the river. But before they do that, they've got to send in some spies and got to check the place out. And they're going to meet a person there who exhibits great courage. You know, as we think about our own life, and hopefully you've been thinking about the steps you've taken or taking, will take, that require courage in your life. And one of those biggest steps for us is the shift that you have to make to your beliefs to the God that we meet in the Bible. You know, especially if you knew nothing about God, to make that shift and say, yes, I will now follow God. Now, sometimes for some of us, you know, we grow up believing in the God of the Bible and we just have to make a decision that we're going to follow him. For some people, following God, saying, yes, it means turning their back or turning away from a deep cultural heritage that they've had, a whole nother religion. And so it can require a lot of courage to do that, even if there's just been no religion, but their culture is totally different than what it means to follow God. Then it really can require a lot of courage to take that step. And so this person kind of represents that. So we're going to go into Joshua chapter 2. Again, the Israelites are getting ready to cross over the Jordan River and go into the Promised Land, the land of Canaan. And we read this, that Joshua, the son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies into the land. He said, go look over the land, especially Jericho. So they went to Jericho and in their house of a prostitute by the name of Rahab, and they stayed there. Now, maybe your question goes, well, why'd they go there of all places? Well, maybe it was a place, you know, kind of low key, travelers maybe coming and going into this area, and so they could kind of blend in. Maybe they had other things on their mind. We don't know. No one seems to make much of that other than we're constantly told this was a prostitute. And they stayed there. And it says, then the king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab, bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. Instead, you know, Rahab could have said, you know, oh yeah, get these guys out of here. I didn't know they were spies. Yeah, take them. But she says, instead, we're told that she chose to hide them. And before she sent them on their way, she told them this, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We've heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. So they realize here are these people who have a God who is a God over all things. Nothing stands in his way. Then she goes on and says, now then please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father, my mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. And so the spies agreed, and they made an oath, and they told her to tie a scarlet cord on her window as a sign to anybody who's coming through, any of the Israelite soldiers coming through, to just leave her house alone. And we're told that after the fall of Jericho, that Joshua spared Rahab, the prostitute, with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho. And then it goes on to say, and she lives among the Israelites to this day. Now that was, you know, in that time frame when that was being written. But that's not the end of her story. You know, we see her here briefly, but then she gets mentioned again. If we go all the way into the New Testament, to Hebrews chapter 11, where we read a great list of people who were examples of faith, we read this. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. Now we might think, wow, that is really something, you know, to be there's all these people, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Noah, Moses, all these people who did things by faith, and there's Rahab in the list. But there's more. We're told in James, in the same way, was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different direction? So here she is in another letter of the New Testament. But wait, there's even more. It's kind of like those things. We've got more for you here. At the beginning of the Matthew's gospel, a genealogy is given that begins with Abraham. And we eventually read of this, of Salmon, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab, Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth, Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. So this prostitute was an ancestor to King David, probably the greatest king the Israelites ever knew. But wait, there's still even more. When we get to the end of that genealogy in Matthew 1, we read this: Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, and Mary was the mother of Jesus, who was called the Messiah. Rahab was a direct ancestor to Joseph, Jesus' earthly father. Now, this is someone that the Bible writers could probably have easily said, let's push her out of the picture. Instead, she's included time after time after time. Why is that? Because Rahab showed the courage to convert, to do what is right, to follow the God that she is introduced to. She doesn't change sides just because of Israel's potential military victory. She's not just trying to figure out who is going to be the winner of this contest. She specifically notes that she believes that the God of the Israelites is God in heaven above and on the earth below. She sees who he is, and that's who she wants to follow. That's who she wants to be aligned with. Now, it takes a lot of courage to confess that our previous beliefs were wrong. To say, you know what, I've considered the evidence. I'm changing my mind. I'm changing my direction. I'm going to follow God now. But what about you? If you've got someone like Rahab, who is time and time again getting that title of prostitute brought along with her, being said, you know what, she is part of God's story. No one is too far afield that they can't be used by God, especially if they turn to him. And so here's the question for you. Have you been considering the God presented to us in Scripture, this gracious, merciful God, but yet this also very powerful God? Are you wondering what following him might mean? Is there fear that you're wrestling with of that? If so, I encourage you to discuss it with your group or group leader or one of our ministers or elders to learn more. As we've seen in this series, following God requires steps of faith that require courage. But I hope you're also seeing that God is gracious, merciful, loving, and kind. He understands our fears, but he calls us to trust him daily as he leads you to himself and his purposes for your life. Thanks again for being a part of this series. I hope it was a blessing to you. I look forward maybe to hearing from you what you thought about it, what you learned from it. Until then, God bless.